Okay, we're going to talk about the audit cycle now. First thing in the audit cycle is the stage 1 audit. That's what you get when you're first registered. It's intended to prove that you have the minimum requirements for going on to the stage 2. And here's your stage 2 audit. That's your certification audit that says you have the minimum requirements to get the ISO certificate. After the stage 2 audit, there's a surveillance audit. The surveillance audit can be either annually or every 6 months, and that's arranged between you and the registrar and the auditor. And there's a second surveillance audit, and it's usually a year later, so it's usually an annual cycle. And then after that, there's what's called the recertification audit, where all the clauses of the standard and all the processes are audited again. There may be site sampling. If you work in a place that has multiple sites, they don't all have to be audited in every surveillance audit. There can be site sampling done. A couple more kinds of audits. There's a scope extension audit. What that is if you need to add a location or to extend your scope to some other activity, you can do that. And also there's a nonconformance follow-up audit. This is the kind of audit you don't want, is if you get a major nonconformance, your auditor comes back in to visit you to verify that the corrective action was effective. We're going to talk about the audit cycle now. The audit cycle is agreed on between the registrar, client, and auditor. It's usually specified in the contract. The auditor might occasionally recommend more frequent auditing if he feels like you've been under-audited. I think I've done that in the past. Recertification audit, all of the processes, clauses, and shifts are audited, and the processes, clauses, and shifts are audited at some time during one of the 2 surveillance audits. The audits have to follow scheduling rules. Usually you're given a target date, and the audit has to be scheduled within 60 days of that, and that rule varies by the registrar. You're required to have 1 audit per calendar year. Audit duration. Audit duration depends on several factors, including the physical facility size, the head count, and the complexity of the activity. Generally speaking, the cutoff is around 15 employees for 1 day, 50 for 2 days, and 100 employees for 3 days. Big operations usually have teams of auditors that come in and do the audit to shorten the actual duration. In my opinion, after having done this a few times, an audit really should never last more than about 2.5 days. By that length of time, everybody's over it. So it's actually better if the audit goes longer than that to have multiple auditors. So here's how not to fail in the audit cycle. First thing is you have to let the registrar know beforehand if there's been a change in your head count. And the reason is it affects your duration of the audit. If your head count increased since the last audit, your audit time might be extended. And if your head count decreased, your audit time might be reduced. You may get to see your auditor for an addendum audit if you don't do this. And I can tell you a couple of stories of how this actually happened. Couple more things about audit scheduling. The busy times of year in this are March through May and September through November in the Northern Hemisphere anyway. That's because auditors are overscheduled and everybody wants their dates on the same period of time, which is before vacation and before the holidays. There are rules as to how far before and after the audit target date you can have the audit, and it's plus or minus 60 days depending on who the registrar is. Audits are required every calendar year, and be alert to the expiration date of your certificate because it affects the scheduling of the recertification audit.